Okay, so now let's talk about what computer do you need for a program? What other stuff? This is primarily a Mac-based program in that our labs are primarily Mac-based. But as I said in the other video, I think, I don't know, you could definitely do things on a PC as well. Everything we do is largely cross-platform. If you had to do something on a Mac, you could use the lab computers. So I've got Apple open here, obviously. I went to Windows. What if we wanted to get a Windows computer? They have helped me choose a PC. I went to that, and it's showing me perfectly fine computers, but that doesn't really get to the point. So here's the first thing I was thinking. PC or Mac is okay, but if you're buying a new one, get a Mac. Okay. I was originally going here because somebody one time had a tablet. They had one of those Surface tablets, and that worked pretty well. It was an undergrad. It worked pretty well, but he was frustrated with it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that either, but they are more affordable. So if you're buying a new Mac, we'll go to Apple and we'll take a look at all that. But let's say, like most humans, you don't have thousands of dollars laying around. What about your current Mac? Well, the first kind of rule of thumb is if it is less than 4 years old, it's okay. It should be fine for our program. Now, that's a rough estimate, right? You'll know better than anybody if your computer is acting weird or it seems to be having trouble or what have you. What are good specs for a computer? Well, again, I'd kind of assume if you were running a Mac, if it was made in the last 3 or 4 years, your processor I'm not worried about. You'd want at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. Ideally, your internal hard drive would be a solid state or SSD. Now, again, those aren't required, but probably less than that, you're going to notice things are running pretty slow. So I mentioned solid state drives. Just so you know, the opposite of that is I guess it's a serial ATA, but I always call it a spinning drive. That's all the hard drives we've ever had until quite recently. And these are hard drives with moving parts, and that's why they break way more often than a solid state drive. So a solid state drive is like your phone. There aren't any moving parts. There's no gears and things spinning around. A serial ATA drive is more like a high-tech digital record player. It's got a little needle reading this spinning disc. That doesn't happen on an SSD. So these days, if you go to Apple and you're going to buy a computer, let's see, it's Mac. They all have solid-state drives. I don't think they sell a computer with a spinning drive anymore. Can you buy spinning drives? Absolutely. People buy them all the time for external drives. And you're going to need an external drive as well. So external hard drives. Let's see. There's going to be all kinds of little stats and things. Notice these first two are sponsored. So let's get down to more realistic results. So hey, that's cheap. That seems big. Great. What's the problem? So there's nothing wrong with any of these. These are all kind of similar. Some are portable and some are desktop, which means they're supposed to sit on a table and you're not supposed to bring it anywhere. So usually our students prefer these type of guys. So again, really affordable. It's got USB 3.0, which means it can plug into anything new or old. It's fun, right? But it's not a solid state drive. This is one of those drives that has a spinning piece inside. And so that means if you drop it really bad or 3 years pass, it's not really going to be reliable. Now, if we scroll down to some of the other stuff, these all kind of sound the same. They're all in the same price point. Might have different amount of storage. How much storage you need really varies, but usually it's pointless to buy something unless it's at least a couple of gigs like this. Okay, so that said, this is not a solid-state drive. Can you buy an external solid-state drive? Of course. But it's going to cost more. Now let's see, portable SSD, USB 3. That sounds great, right? It's a little bit more expensive than what we were just looking at it, but look, it's half the size. It's half a terabyte. I think I was saying gigabytes before. We want terabytes, right? Here we go. Samsung T5 SSD, 2 terabytes. Man, okay, that is super awesome, but it's $230. So we're in a completely different price point now, right? So when you go to SSD, you're going to have a lot less space. That said, I would rather have two of these Samsung drives for $70 each than one external drive that's like twice that size that isn't an SSD, right? If I go back one of these. So again, this would totally get you through the program. There's a 99.9% chance you get through the program and never run into any problems with this drive. But after 3 years, it's going to be on life support. That's just the nature of hard drives with spinning parts. So most people end up using this. I do. You need an internal SSD if you're buying a new computer. But your external drives, it's really up to you. Now, I'm talking about when y'all are asked to buy an external hard drive. I'm not talking about a backup drive. What do you want for a backup drive? Well, you want an external hard drive. Does that need to be the SSD thing? No, it doesn't. It's totally fine for it to be a serial ATA. It could also be a desktop drive because you don't need to move it around, right? So I'll choose that. Now, you don't have to choose that, but I just did. Let me point out something that is a little sneaky. Data storage platform support, Mac or PC. Oh, well, I better get a Mac drive. This is BS. Any hard drive can be formatted to run on a Mac or a PC or both. You can talk to me if you need to do that. If you buy a computer and it's already formatted for the PC, you just reformat for the Mac. So that's silly. So what do you need for a backup drive? You want the biggest thing possible. So I'm going to click 4 terabytes and above. Look at these big beasts. All right, so here's the cheapest one. Yeah, this looks great. This is a great backup drive. Again, it's got spinning parts, but you're not going to carry it around with you. You're going to put it on your desktop and leave it there. We don't need it that big. There you go, $90. You've got, this is way more space than you need, right? 4 terabytes. The idea is it backs up multiple versions of your computer. You can go back to any point. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, so I kind of went off topic, I guess, when we were talking about computer specs over here and the different kind of stuff that you would want to check your computer for. Let me just kind of finish this up. I want to talk about backup options, which I haven't really gotten into yet. It's kind of similar to what we were just talking about. How to kind of optimize your old computer, and then what to do if you're buying a new computer. Let me try to stick to that format. I kind of already talked about backup drives, but the only thing I didn't mention is you can also back up with the cloud. So backup cloud versus external. I do external because the cloud only works if you have an internet connection. The cloud usually depends on a monthly subscription. And when exactly you're going to cancel the monthly subscription to access all of your backup files from your computer? That's right, the answer is never. So they have you for life. I'd rather just have my external. Again, totally up to you, but we're not going to follow up on this. Y'all need to back up. And those of you that have lost data or projects, especially creative ones, because you didn't back up, you are going to back up. I'm really talking to those of you that this has never happened to. Because when it does, it really sucks. Okay, next thing. How do I try to optimize my computer to perform a little bit better? Well, this is broadly, this applies to any computer, but I'm going to use the Mac again as this example because I'm doing a screencast here. And you can see if I go to my users in bwalsh 5 folder like we did earlier, I got movies. This wants to put all my stuff in there, right? Music, pictures. I assume you all have as many of these things as I do. I put all of those on external drives because I want my internal hard drive to just have my applications and my documents that I'm writing, which for a lot of you, you'll put that on an external as well. But here's the important thing. I want to keep this thing clear. I have a 500 gigabyte internal hard drive. That's really big for an SSD. You can see available, I've got 183 gigabytes. So hey, I've got tons of room, right? So there's a trick to Mac computers where they start using their internal hard drive as temporary RAM. And so you want to keep about 30% of it free at all times. So what's that going to be? Well, I have a 500 gigabyte hard drive. So if I say 500 times, oh, that wasn't times, what did I say? Oh, yeah, 0.3. That means I'd want to keep 150 gigabytes of my 500 gigabyte hard drive free to keep it running optimally. And again, that's because it uses it as temporary storage. And I have that, but I'm running out of space, right? So that's pretty hard to maintain. How do you achieve that? Well, you want to, again, relocate your photos, your music. I mean, maybe music's not an issue as much now that everybody's streaming. But I know for me, those two things take up ton. And if you got a bunch of movies in there, those are the biggest things of all. Just put them on an external. I can help you do that. It's not hard. I've had students come to me with hard drives just dedicated to their external stuff, and we've gotten it all set up. Okay, if you're going to buy a new computer, for this program, just buy a Mac. We've got a lot of options, but you can see once we get to past these first three. Oh, by the way, I'm on the Apple website. I click on Mac. After these first three, these are all desktops. So you definitely want a laptop. So what are your options? You got a MacBook Air. The upgrade from that is the Mac. They call it the Air because it's really light. MacBook Pro 13. That's the size of the screen. MacBook Pro 16. So obviously these are going up in price, and this is like the Ninja, right? In fact, this is similar to what I'm working on now. And again, it's not my computer. I can never afford this. This thing's really cool. If you are a millionaire, please do not buy this computer. Nobody buy this computer right now, because it is running on an Intel processor. Okay, Macs have been running on an Intel processor for over a decade, so what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is they are changing that now, and they are slowly replacing their line of computers with Apple-built chips. And what that means is in a couple of years, it's all going to be Apple chips, and any computer with an Intel chip is going to be totally obsolete. So unfortunately, the MacBook Pro 16 and the whole 16 right now, all of them, do not have that new Apple chip. On the MacBook Pro 13, let's look at the tech specs. You can choose, it looks like, which chip. This is the actual processor. You definitely want this, the M1, the Apple M1 chip. Yeah. None of this other stuff matters, honestly. All the base level Macs, that is at this point the most affordable Mac that you can buy, is going to come with at least 8 gigs of hard drive and a solid state internal drive, which you can upgrade. And that's what you want. So which of these would you buy? Let's go back to Mac. What have we figured out? We figured out that, I can tell you the MacBook Air has the new M1 chip. The MacBook Pro 13, it's an option, as we just saw. The only other Mac that has it is the new Mac Mini. Doesn't really apply to us because we want to look at portables. So I'm going to go to compare and just look at those first two. So we want to look at the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. How did it know? How did it know? Those are the two we wanted to compare, and we don't need this one. So here, we'll just compare it to the Mac Mini for fun. Okay, so the screen size is the same. It's relatively small. I want to tell you all, though, a lot of students use the huge monitors we have all over the long building as an external display. They all have the same chip. They all have the same maximum memory and maximum storage. And yeah, this one has Touch ID. This one has the Touch Bar and Touch ID. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about with the Touch Bar, you might want to go to a Mac store and just kind of meet one, but they're pretty annoying. So this is rare, but I would recommend strongest to y'all, you have to choose one of these two right now if you're buying a new computer, because you need that M1 chip. Or you can wait until other ones roll out with the new M1 chip, but that's going to be September, maybe November. This is the best computer I think Mac offers right now, and it's their most affordable laptop. Now, I say most affordable, it's starting at $1,000, right? And that's insane. The only difference between these two is the hard drive. In fact, you could choose this one and upgrade the hard drive, so it doesn't really matter. So your only options are upgrading the the size of the internal drive. I mean, you could go up to 512, but I wouldn't go past that. Upgrading the RAM will make a very impressive difference in the performance of this computer, but it costs $200. But just straight out of the box with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 SSD, this thing rocks. It is, again, $1,000, but Apple has an education program. If I can find it, let's see, Apple Education. Let's see how much it costs now. This does not look right. Let's see, Apple for Education. I think this is it. College students. That's y'all, right? Okay. Shop. Okay, great. Mac. That'll probably be the first one, right? So here's the MacBook Air. So what was it, $1,000? It was $999. So let's see, what's our damage now? It's $100 less, right? It was $9.99, I think, and now it's $8.99. Or did I make that up? That's awesome. So that's what I would get. And even if you got the that other one, that 13-inch MacBook Pro, which again I don't think really the only difference between these two is the fan. The MacBook Pro 13 has an internal fan, which sounds kind of important because it cools the CPU, but the design of the MacBook Air makes it so it doesn't need that. Okay, I've talked enough about buying a Mac and that student discount. So anybody that needs to buy a Mac, let me know, and I can walk you through all that stuff. Same with a hard drive, a backup drive, all that. Feel free to just ask me in person, or again, you can email me at bwalsh5@elon.edu. And thanks again.